by a council member. Do I have anything from council? All right, I'm going to actually pull item J5 for a statement. So with that, I'll be looking for a motion to approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. And those items are receive and file warrants for periods ending November 2nd, 2022. Item 2 is the treasurer's report for a period ending October 2022. Item 3 is going to be to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 15.07 of the City of Galt Municipal Code by setting forth an expedited streamlined permitting process for electric vehicle charging stations as required by Government Code 65850.7. Item 4 is to adopt an ordinance to add Chapter 15.34 of the Galt Municipal Code to enact the Applied Technology Council ATC 20 Uniform Placard System. And item 6 is the approval of updated competitive bidding waiver list. And item 7 is to adopt an ordinance of the Galt City Council of the City of Galt, amending section 5.50.000 of and chapter 5.752 of the Galt Municipal Code and amending the Joint Powers Agency Agreement related to the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission. Do I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lozano.
Second.
Seconded by Council. Yes, sir.
Mayor, if I may just remind you, go to public comment even for this.
Thank you. Sorry. Do we have any public comment regarding the consent calendar?
No public comment.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. Motion was moved by Councilman Lozano and seconded by Vanderberg. Can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Sandu? I'm sorry, Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano?
Aye.
Mayor Farmer?
Aye. Those six items approved 5-0. Item J5 is item I pulled. This is the Summerfield at Twin Cities Road Project. Appeal of request for tentative subdivision map modifications of condition A20. I only pulled this item to state that I was not in favor of this project. Actually the original approval of this project when we had the old council, I was very much against this project. I thought it was a terrible idea then. I still think it's a terrible idea, and I think it's gone from that to worse. Last meeting, we had an appeal by the developer to make some modifications, which this council did approve. I voted against that as well. But I just wanted to state that this project, to me, is just lipstick on a pig, and I'm very disappointed that it's moving forward. And I'm hoping that in the future that this council will, considering in the day and age when we have very little control over projects that come before us and those powers have been stripped away from us, this was an example of when we did have a say in a project, and we didn't. I don't think we made the right decision on it. But I just want to make that statement. So, with that, I'll be looking for a motion to approve this item, and it is to adopt a resolution to grant the request for tentative subdivision map modifications of condition A20 for the Summerfield at Twin Cities project.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Vandenberg.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councilmember Papineau. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano?
Aye.
Mayor Farmer?
Nay. Approved 3-1. All right. Moving on to item K. Scheduled matters, notice of public hearing. Our first item this evening is going to be number 1, introduce an ordinance adding section 18.16.080, sections 15.32.030, section 18.08.030, 1816.040, 1816.050, and tables 1828.1 and 1848.2, and repealing section 1844.150 of the Galt Municipal Code regarding accessory dwelling units, otherwise known as ADUs, and junior accessory dwellings, JADUs, exempt from CEQA under California Public Resources Code section 21080.17. Mr. Hoffman.
All right. Mayor, members of the council, the City Council previously held a public hearing on October 4th, 2022, and voted to approve the ADU ordinance by 5-0 vote. The ordinance was scheduled for a second reading and adoption on October 18th. And in between that time, the state recently adopted new ADU standards that required updating of our ordinance. These modifications were in regard to height limitations, front yard setbacks, and denial justifications. And so staff is requesting the city council redo the public hearing process. Essentially what the state did was they put a poison pill in the updated language. And if we would have adopted the ordinance, if it wasn't consistent with the new state standards, our ordinance would become invalid. So we're having to redo the process. Working with our legal team, the ordinance was modified. Again, those modifications were strictly in regard to the height of the ADU, up to 18 or 25 feet, depending on the location, how close to transit, requiring certain city front yard setbacks to yield if a ADU could only fit in that location and still meet side yard setbacks, and requiring the city to justify a denial with a full set of detailed comments describing the deficiencies in the application and how to remedy them, and also removing the automatic repeal in 2025, making the ADU state or statute permanent. We've made those changes. They're state standards. We don't have the latitude to include them or not put them in. So tonight, staff's asking the council to open a public hearing, receive comments, and then once you've taken those comments, close the public hearing and introduce and waive a first reading of the ordinance. This is really the same ordinance you saw before with the modifications required by the state now.
All right, thank you, sir. I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and then we'll have comments by council. So the public hearing is now open. Do we have any comments by council first on this item? All right. Do we have any speakers in the room that would like to speak on this particular item? Okay. So the public hearing is open regarding the ADU municipal code amendment, and if you'd like to speak, you come into the podium. Do we have any other comment, Tina?
No public comment.
Okay. Well, with that, then we will close the public comment, and I will be looking for a motion to introduce and waive the first reading by title only, an ordinance of the City of Galt, the City Council of the City of Galt, adding section 18.16.080, amending sections 15.32030, 18.0030, 18.16.040, 18.16.050, tables 1828-1, 1848-2, and repealing section 1844.150 of the Galt Municipal Code regarding accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units. Do I have a motion to move that forward?
Moved.
Moved by Councilman Lozano,
Seconded.
seconded by Councilmember Papineau. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano? Mayor Farmer?
Aye. Approved 5-0. All right, moving on to our next item in public hearings. This will be for the respective proposed water and wastewater rate adjustments, I'm sorry. And give me a second here, Mr. Selling. Computer locked up on me. All right, welcome to the City of Galt, Galt public hearing on proposed increases to water rates and wastewater rates. Before we open the public hearing, I would like to ask our legal counsel to explain the requirements for Proposition 218 governing this public hearing and the proposed adoption of the water rates and the wastewater rates. Mr. Splendario.
Yes, this public hearing was set in compliance with Prop 218. The city mailed the notice of this public hearing to the record owners of the property subject to the imposition of the proposed water rates and wastewater rates, and to tenants directly liable for the payment of such rates. i.e. customers of record who are not property owners. The date and time of this public hearing is not less than 45 days after the city mailed the water and wastewater public hearing notices to all affected owners and property owners and applicable customers. The purpose of the public hearing is for the City Council to hear all oral testimony and consider all written protests concerning the proposed water and wastewater rate increases. It is also held to determine whether there is a majority protest to the proposed rates and whether to proceed with the adoption of the proposed rates. Property owners and tenants are not required to provide oral testimony at today's hearing. If they wish, they may simply submit a written protest directly to the city clerk indicating their opposition to the proposed water rate and wastewater increases. And I'd add that they've had that time throughout this whole comment and review period. However, if they wish the protest to be counted, they must submit a written protest prior to the close of the public hearing tonight and right now, before it closes. Written protests may be submitted during the hearing by delivering the written protest to the city clerk prior to the close of the public comment portion of this public hearing. All valid protests submitted to the city by mail and received by the city since the notice of public hearing was sent will also be counted. The public hearing will be closed after the City Council has heard and considered all oral testimony on these items. Oral comments do not qualify as written protests. In order to be counted, the protest must be in writing. State whether it is in opposition to the water rate increase or the wastewater increase, include the location of the identified parcel, and include the name and signature of the person submitting the written protest. Any protest submitted by email or other electronic means will not be accepted as a formal written protest. If written protests against either of the proposed water rate or wastewater rate increases are presented by a majority of the owners of the identified parcels upon which the charges are to be imposed or tenants directly liable for the payment of such charges, the City Council may not impose the water rate or wastewater rate increases as applicable. If there is no majority protest for either of the proposed rates, the City Council may impose both rate increases. Pursuant to state law governing Prop 218 and determining whether majority protest exists, only one written protest per parcel may be counted.
All right, thank you, Mr. Splendario. So the public hearing will be conducted in the following manner. Number one, the city staff will first provide a presentation explaining the proposed rate increases. Number two, after the presentation, the City Council will open the public hearing for any persons wishing to speak on this item. Number three, after all oral testimony has been heard, the City Council will close the public hearing and, if needed, have a short recess to determine if a majority protest to either of the proposed rate increases has been received. Only those written protests submitted prior to the close of the public hearing will be counted. And lastly, if any members of the public wish to speak at this time, you will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to do so. We ask that you keep your comments brief and to the point so that we can allow everyone a chance to speak. Our city clerk will be keeping time for each speaker. You'll be notified when you have reached your maximum allowed time. To facilitate the discussion, any questions from speakers will not be answered during the public hearing. We will now provide a brief presentation on the water and wastewater rates. Then I will open the public hearing. Mr. Selling.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and council members. For tonight's item to consider water and wastewater rate adjustments, I wanted to briefly provide a presentation to review what's being proposed. And with me tonight is our consultant, Mr. Habib Isaac of IB Consulting, and he will also be available, at the end for any questions. And they are the ones who prepared the cost of service studies and we'll try it up and see, yeah, and rate study reports. So the key objectives include the following: providing for the long-term financial stability of the water and wastewater funds, ensuring the respective rates are equitable and then meet the required state standards. Also, that the rates account for both the capital improvements to keep the systems operating as well as the remaining debt from the state revolving fund loans, and that's on the wastewater side specifically. And then lastly, to comply with Proposition 218, which is the right to vote on local taxes. I want to offer a bit of an apology on this. I know they're kind of small and a little bit hard to see. These are the proposed water rates. And so it's basically, you'll see the current rate on the far left, and then what's being proposed over the next 5 years as you go to the right. I think the main thing that I want to point out here is that what we're proposing now and what Galt has not had in the past is 2 tiers. And essentially what that means is there is, the first tier is basically for any accounts, any households, whatnot, that are using 9 units of water or less. And for everyone's understanding, a unit is 748 gallons. It's 100 cubic feet. That's how we measure the amount of water. So in the past, we've had comments for like a senior rate or a low use rate. And while we can't, give specific rates to certain, classifications, if you will, what we can do is essentially a low use rate. And that's based on the winter average. So that's how we come up with the 9 units. And that's a winter average. And what that means is there's no outdoor watering, theoretically. It's only indoor water use during the winter. So we have a tier 1 and tier 2, and the way that works is essentially for everyone, the first 9 units basically are charged at that tier 1 rate. If you had, in your house, say you use 15 units in a given month, you would get the tier 1 rate for the first 9, and then you'd get the tier 2 rate for the remaining 6 units. So that's how that would work, okay? I think that that's about what I wanted to note as far as the water rates. I mean, as you can see, I think they're going up initially about 5 cents in the first year, and then I think it's around a dime or so the following years. On the wastewater side, again, apologies for the difficulty in this and trying to get all that information on one slide. But basically what we're showing here is the proposed wastewater rates. And for both of these, water and wastewater, it's not just residential, but it's also commercial. So just to clarify that. The thing that I wanted to note here as far as the wastewater rates go is the amounts for the state revolving funds, and maybe just for everybody's understanding, the city has taken out 2 what we call SRF loans, and that's state revolving fund. That's a statewide loan program where cities and counties can borrow money to improve their systems to meet state standards. So the city took out the first one in 2012, and these are 20-year loans, I believe. Yeah, so that will actually sunset in 2032. And then the second state revolving fund loan, SRF2, was taken out in 2018, so that will run through 2038. And so what happens is the way that repayment of those loans work is it's a set amount, fixed amount every year for the city to pay back. But as the city grows, we get more accounts. And so that same dollar amount that we're paying back each year is being spread over the increased number of accounts as the city grows. And so that's why in years past, the SRF loans have been a bit more. But now, since this was last done, and I should have noted in the water side, it was last done in 2016. And on the wastewater side, it was last done in 2017. Typically, this happens about every 5 years or so. Typically, because that's as far as you can go out when you're doing rate adjustments. So anyway, for that, those state revolving fund amounts are lowering, and so that's helping to offset the increases for providing the wastewater treatment services. Wanted to show that this slide basically is just a cover page for both the public notices, again the water notice and the wastewater notice. These were about 4-page notices that were sent out again to all of the households and businesses. So that was the notices that we provided that Mr. Splendario referenced earlier. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation. And again, Mr. Isaac and myself are available for any questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Should I open the public hearing first? Mr. Splendario, should I field questions from council first?
You can, the way the script is ordered is you can open the public hearing, take comment, and then have questions, or if you prefer, you can do questions now and then open the public comment if you're more comfortable, as long as we have it clearly in there. The script setup is right now is to open the public hearing, take any public comment, and then you'll have an opportunity to dialogue with staff and ask questions and deliberate amongst yourself.
Okay, then we'll do that. All right. So we will now open the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item? Do we have any public comment?
I have no public comment.
Okay, so the public hearing is open. Any council members have questions for Mr. Selling?
I do have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you for the presentation, and I know that it's been a lot of work that's gone into this over time. A couple of questions that pop up with citizens are the question of, with projected growth, two things. One, is there going to be enough water and water to consume with the growth that's approved and or going to be approved? And then secondly, is there going to be enough wastewater treatment facility capacity for that? And then the second part of that I hear regularly is, given the increase in accounts, wouldn't that offset any rate increases that need to come, knowing that there are going to be more people paying into this system? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, why do we have to pay more when we have all of these
Right.
homes approved to be built?
Yeah. So I'll start, and then I'll let Mr. Isaac, he may provide some additional technical insight as far as how the rates were calculated, as far as the growth goes. But as far as the growth goes with regard to the water side first, so the city of Galt, 100% of our water comes from the aquifer beneath the city. And so that's the Kasumna subbasin, groundwater subbasin. And so that subbasin, of the 7 entities that overlie that subbasin, which we are working in cooperation with, and Mr. Vandenberg is a board member on what they call the CGA, or the Kasumnas Groundwater Authority. So the basin is what the state has determined to be a medium priority basin, which means that there is some overdraft of it, meaning that there's more water being taken out every year than is resupplying the basin, naturally. And so we have 20 years, we've developed a plan, we have 20 years to show that we are sustainable, meaning that there is no net, extraction of the basin over what is recharging it. There are several projects, as you can probably well imagine, in that plan that are going to take, from a few years to several years, and maybe even ongoing, in perpetuity, effectively, to ensure the sustainability of the groundwater basin. Just for a point of reference, and I think the council's heard this before, but maybe as a reminder, the city's share of the groundwater extraction is about 4% overall. And so I know there's a lot of, concern that as the city grows, and all these homes and things, and they think there's going to be more water extracted. And while that's true to a degree, when you look at the demand that ag has, it's typically anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5, even up to 3, depending on the crop, where there are crops, and not all of it is. Some of it's rangeland and things. It's just natural. But where there are crops, those are taking, like I said, anywhere from 1.5 to 3 times the amount of water per acre. So the city is a minor player, if you will, in that. I mean, we are the big population in this basin, but we are, like I said, 4% of that extraction. So as the city grows, and Galt has historically been pretty low growth, even with the amount of houses, that are on the books right now, if you will, the developments that we know, that there is no significant concern at this point in time for, meeting the demands of that development. So that's on the water side. On the wastewater side, so our plant was designed to handle 6 million gallons per day of treatment capacity. Right now, we average around 2.2 or so million gallons per day throughout the year. Right now, the plant is capacity, I believe, for upwards of 2.5 million gallons. So we anticipate 2 expansions to get from where we currently are at 2.5 up to 6. So we would probably be looking at 1.5 million gallons or more expansion for each of those. We don't anticipate the first one for approximately at least 5 years or more. at this point in time. So the quick answer is that yes, there's sufficient capacity to meet, the anticipated growth in the near term and probably the next, couple to 5 years or so. And then, like I said, the plant is essentially expandable to go up to 6 million gallons per day. So, now, help me again. What were you asking beyond that?
The fact that we are planning for growth at whatever level it happens, right, 0.6% a year or more. Because of that, why would we need to increase our rates when there are going to be more people paying into the system over time?
Right. So what, and Mr. Isaac may, get into this a little bit more technically, but as we look at what the state requirements are now, and they are ever changing, which only adds cost as we go, and we look at what the age of our infrastructure is and what we need to replace over time, through time. So they look at all those things. What are the capital, maintenance costs? What are the replacement costs for, keeping that system up and running, essentially in perpetuity? Obviously, there are additional labor costs, for all elements of labor, in the process, from administration to operations, and treatment and whatnot. So all of those costs are essentially what's really driving, I think, how they calculate the rates. So growth is obviously a piece of that too. But beyond that, that's what I can say. I don't know, Mr. Isaac, did you have anything further you wanted to add? Or? Sure.
Good evening, Habib Isaac with IB Consulting. The other thing about growth is we also want to make sure that we're not relying on projections of growth that may not materialize, especially in this environment where the interest rates are going up and building has slowed down. So if we did anticipate growth and it doesn't happen, and then that could be potentially where you don't meet your revenue requirements. So an example of that is last time we made sure that we captured all the growth that did occur. We did the same thing this time to add the number of additional units. And then that showed in the wastewater portion with the SRF loans that the rate per unit actually went down because there's more accounts to spread it over. Similarly, that's the same thing with the fixed account charge, and there's more units of flow to spread the cost over. But we don't assume any type of plan development that's actually going to come online next year or the year after. We will wait to see that you outperform, because these notice rates are your ceiling. And if those developments do come in, then you could potentially not go up to that ceiling that's in the notice. You could even go to a lower amount. But again, we don't want to rely on growth happening. And then if it doesn't happen, then we're in a situation where you're not going to meet your revenue needs in our analysis.
Okay, thank you. And that makes perfect sense. I think we've had some projected growth in this city for a long time that hasn't happened. So that makes perfect sense. And then just one last thing. On the SRF funds, the loans, those were requirements, you said, by the state to upgrade our system. At any point in that process, did the state offer any resources in terms of financing, financial gift or?
I was going to say, are you thinking grant?
Correct.
I'd have to go back and research. I wasn't here at that time, but we could go back and research. I don't know. I know you were involved in the last rate study, but do you recall anything?
I don't believe so, but the SRF alone is very, very favorable financing with the interest rate that you get from the SRFs.
Right. And I appreciate that. The point I'm trying to make is that yet we have another mandate by the state to make improvements and or do something locally here that comes with no obvious funding, and it just gets passed down to the ratepayer, and that's getting old. So
yeah.
And also in terms of growth, though, growth does pay their fair share of facilities. You build these expansions in advance, so you do have capacity fees where when they come online and pay their impact fees for library, fires, police, they also pay capacity fees to get service for water and wastewater. And part of those capacity fees is paying back the ratepayers for the facilities that had been built in advance of growth occurring. So those facilities are example of that on the wastewater side.
Yeah, and yeah, I appreciate that. I just, the other side of that is that our fees can be so large in a small town that it stunts economic growth at the commercial level. And so you always want to be concerned with that, right? And we've done some things here on this council to help offset some of that, but that's all I had. I appreciate it.
I'd like to piggyback on one of his questions. So if I was understanding you, it's Mr. Isaacs, right? So if I was understanding what you said correctly, you're saying that although we might see an increase in a rate once, not projected developments, but once developments become a reality, then we start spreading those fees amongst the new total number of households, that they could possibly actually see a reduction in somewhere in there, a slight reduction as it gets cost averaged across. Did I understand that correctly?
I would say, like, say, for example, the adjustments each year, that the schedule of the 5 years that they're going up, maybe you don't have to go up to that extent because you see growth occur. So we recalibrated the rates, and the SRF loans are the perfect example because it's a fixed cost that doesn't change, where we captured all the units that have come online for over the last 5 years, and that's why the unit rate for each loan went down. So that's something you can actually do every 5 years, or you can look at it every other year or every year to then capture those new units and then have that unit rate go down. But you would probably still increase the rate from where they are today, but maybe you don't have to go up to the maximum that we're showing for each year. You might be able to reduce it a little bit.
And so, regarding the SRF, so you mentioned that those came into place in 16 and 17. So theoretically, if I was to look back at the SRF payments like looking at my utility bill, my water bill in 2017, there's a chance that that piece of my bill would be less today than it was then.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I know we haven't had a lot of growth since 17. I mean, we've had a lot of growth approved, but now we're just starting to see those developments actually come online. So theoretically, maybe we'll start seeing little pieces of that SRF go down as these developments actually come to fruition, maybe.
Yeah, and in the study, we actually did lower those unit rates because we did capture, I don't know how much more units of service came on.
Do you guys know offhand? Like, I know, is it like $12 or $13 per one or something like that?
I think the two, and you know what, I had it on a little sticky and I left it back at the office. But as I recall, I think they were in the like $2 to $4 range each on the SRF 1 and 2. So in 2017, when the rates were last adjusted, those SRF amounts respectively were like $2 and $4 higher for over the last 5 years than what we're proposing right here today.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you said $2 to $4, but I remember them being like somewhere around $15 each. So combined, your water bill, you're paying about $30 out of your bill are going to those two loans, if I remember just roughly.
I think it's around low 20s now combined.
Okay.
We broke it out. Yeah. So
It's like 9 and 12.
in the packet on the mailer that was sent out, the notice that was sent out, I'm looking at the SRF loan 1 and 2 for residential. So SRF 1 is $9.03 proposed, and 2 is $12.25 proposed. And like I said, I could go back and email or something and provide that information tomorrow. But I believe they were in the $2 to $4 higher over the last 5 years.
So is there any chance, I know Councilman Lozano mentioned his frustration with mandates where they come and say you need to upgrade. Like in this case, we were told you need to upgrade your plant, but hey, don't worry, we'll loan you the money at a great interest rate. It's like, gee, thanks a lot. And then we're not even done paying that off, and they come along and say, oh, by the way, we're going to need you to do some other updates, and then we had to take out a second loan, essentially, right? Is there any, do we have any idea that before we get to 2032 or 2038 that we're going to have another mandate or even another one, we could have 3 or 4 loans? Are we just going to have loans forever, or we don't know?
Yeah, I would say that we certainly don't know. We aren't aware of any such, significant potential mandates on the horizon at this point in time. But your point is well taken, Mayor. There could be something a few years down the road.
So, and were these upgrades, in fresh memory, I know if, I watched all this back in the day, but were those upgrades where they basically said, we need the water to be, so many parts per million or whatever cleanliness, and now we need it to be even better than that, and then that required, what exactly were these improvements? Just,
Yeah, I think it was really, I would categorize it kind of two things. Meeting state standards that had changed, and the other thing was there was some plant expansion too, to allow for future growth for the city, so.
but we are good right now up to 6 million, right? So,
Yeah, we are good right now up to about 2.5 million.
Oh,
Yeah,
right,
we
right.
can expand up to 6, yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if, for some reason, things took off development-wise, I could see, 3, 4, 5 years, we may be looking at coming to the council requesting, possibly a third loan for expanding the plant.
So you said we're currently running how much through the plant? Was 1 point something?
I think the average now is around 2.2 million gallons a day,
And then we're currently, without expanding the plant, you said we could go up to what?
about 2.5 million gallons.
2.5. So we got like 0.3 of growth allowable, right?
About another, 300,000 gallons or so.
So just, I hate to just put you on the spot for math, but just roughly 0.3 increase before we have to do expansion. How many houses are we talking about?
Yeah.
Mr. Isaacs had to get his calculator out or his phone.
I could help with that.
I'm just curious of knowing kind of what, we kind of know what projects are out there in the works right now, how many houses. I'm just kind of, it's something to think about, right? Like when we go to approve development, when are we going to be up against that wall? We're going to be like, oh, we've triggered now this expansion requirement.
The challenge there is a couple of things on that, and I'll give the Liberty Ranch as an example, which is I think around 2,400 homes. Mr. Hoffman may correct me. But I think it's around 2,400 homes. Those homes are obviously not going to be built in a year. They're probably going to be built in 5, 6, 8 years' time. So it will be a gradual, coming online, if you will. And the same with, that's the big one, right? A lot of the other ones are, I think, in the 1 to 200 home development size. So these things are going to happen gradually, and obviously, the economy is a big factor. Right now, what we're, kind of hearing and seeing is a lot of these developments, some that were saying they were, ready to go forward are now hitting the pause button. So I think as you saw in the Greenwood public hearing, last council meeting has been bumped out now to next year. So, and that's just one example. I think there's at least 2 or 3 others we've heard similar things from where they're, they're buttoning up and gonna, I think kind of take a wait and see approach for the next several months potentially. So, so I don't know if you get.
It'd be roughly about 1,200 units plus. And the reason why I say plus is because new development typically are more energy efficient and with their facilities and their faucets.
That's not too far off for us. I know I brought this to Mr. Winkler, your predecessor, Mike, way back.
Right.
But I mentioned to him, which I mentioned to you, and I'm sure you guys are doing this, but I'm just hoping that there's close coordination between your department and Mr. Hoffman's department when we have projects presented to the council, that they know when we get close to that trigger point, because I'd hate for us to be like, oh, wait, we're not, if we, that comes online, we're going to need that expansion, and that expansion is going to take X amount of time, and then we're in kind of a pickle.
Yeah, we don't want to be, essentially playing catch up. I hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. I think it was pretty straightforward. Thank you for answering my questions. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, just real quickly. Thank you for all the explanations. That was really nice. Two, just for the public's knowledge, the city can't make money on this. This is just a break-even process. I think that's important to mention every time. If you don't do this, and you're eating away at other funds, so you really simply can't do that. And then thank you for making the 2-tier system. That's a nice way to actually help people without having to do a lot of paperwork and going house to house, so to speak. So I appreciate it.
And one thing worth pointing out, it's noted in the material, but there was a related policy discussion that we had related to transferring previously the wastewater all the way out to the main line was a responsibility even under the street of the homeowner, correct? And then so the policy discussion, and it's considered within these rates, is shifting that back to where the property owner is only responsible on their own land and not going to incur those huge expenses should something go wrong out in the street like that. So
Yes, that's correct, Councilmember. Yes, thank you for pointing that out.
I remember that discussion. Thank you for bringing that up. Do we have any public comment in the room from anybody?
No public comment.
Okay. All right. You have anything to add, or is that it?
No, I would just express the city's thanks to Mr. Isaac and his team. They're great to work with and top-notch on top of their game, so it's been a real pleasure. As these things go, I mean, it's no fun for anybody to have to, propose rate increases, but anyway, I think the city has been fortunate to have such good consultants helping us on this.
I do want to add one thing. And part of this agenda, you do have the administrative record, which is our report that justifies the rates and the calculations. So that is on file at the city from now in perpetuity that people can ask for and review it if they have any questions.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. All right. Well, if there is nobody who wishes to speak in the room, then I am prepared to close the public hearing. But before I do that, I would like to provide anyone who would like to submit or withdraw a written protest, they have the opportunity to do so. Once the public hearing is closed, the City Council may no longer accept any written protests on the proposed water rates or wastewater rate increases. Are there any remaining written protests anyone wishes to deliver to the City Clerk? All right, well, with that, I will close the public hearing. And at this time, I would like to ask the city clerk whether a recess will be needed to tabulate results or not.
We do not need a recess.
Okay. I would ask the city clerk to now provide the city council with the tabulation result for all valid written protests submitted prior to the close of the public hearing.
For wastewater rate protest, we have 12 written letters. And for the water rate protest, we have 13 written letters.
And I'll just add that the requisite number of protests we would need for the water rates would be a majority of the owners of the parcels or tenants directly liable for the bill, and we would need 4,074. And just putting this on the record, and then for wastewater, we would need a majority would be 4,078 written protests. So a majority protest does not exist for the proposed water rates or for the proposed wastewater rates.
All right, thank you, sir. The city clerk and Mr. Smandari has advised us that based on the number of valid written protests submitted prior to the close of the public hearing, a majority protest does not exist for the adoption of the proposed water rates or proposed wastewater rates. The city council may now proceed to consider the proposed resolution to adopt the increases to the city's water rates and wastewater rates. As a reminder, the time for public comment has ended, and the city council will not engage directly with any individual customer or member of the public. Do any members of the city council wish to speak or call on staff for any clarification with respect to the proposed water and wastewater rates at this time? Okay. Well, the city council concludes discussion of this item and may now vote on the resolutions. Do I have a motion to approve a resolution of the city of Galt, California, approving the wastewater rate adjustments?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Papineau,
Second?
seconded by Councilman Vandenberg. I will now call for a roll call.
Councilmember Papineau,
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano,
Aye.
Mayor Farmer.
Aye. Resolution's approved 5-0. I now will entertain a motion to approve the resolution of the City Council of Galt, City of Galt, California, approving the wastewater rate adjustments.
Just to be clear, I think you said wastewater before, so this would be the water.
Thank you. You're right. Yeah, you're right. I did them in reverse. Thank you for pointing that out. All right. So to be clear, I will be entertaining a motion to approve the water rate adjustments.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Vanderberg,
Second.
seconded by Councilman Lozano. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Vanderberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano?
Aye.
Mayor Farmer?
Aye. Resolution approved 5-0. All right, moving on to item L from our regular calendar. Our first item is going to be from the city manager's office. The subject is going to be a resolution approving updated salary schedules and one-time benefit payments for unrepresented employees and authorization to amend the fiscal year 2022 through 2023 annual budget. Mr. Hines?
Thank you, Mayor Farmer. On October 18th, 2022 and November 1st, 2022, the City Council approved successor MOUs with the city's 3 bargaining units. Those bargaining units are the Galt Police Officers Association, the Galt Police Department Civilians Association, and the Galt Public Service Unit. Those MOUs contain salary adjustments across a 3-year period beginning in fiscal year 2022-23 through fiscal year 2024-25. The council has now directed city staff to prepare a resolution to approve salary schedule updates for the unrepresented employees, and that is what's presented here tonight. And so the chart on page 2 of 5, I'm going to go through that. For the unrepresented professional and confidential, these are effective July 1st, 2022 through July 1st, 2023, a minimum 2% salary adjustment and no compounding in year 2, and an additional market salary adjustment for certain classifications to increase market competitiveness over the next 2 years. The next group is the unrepresented mid-management. Again, July 1st, 2022 through July 1st, 2023. Minimum salary, 2% salary adjustment, additional market salary adjustment for certain job classifications. For the unrepresented management, the department heads, the salary will become effective July 1st and 2022, and it's a 2% salary adjustment. And again, just to clarify for the public, the agreements for the unrepresented professional confidential and the unrepresented mid-management are 2-year agreements, and the unrepresented management is right now it's just a single-year agreement. In addition to these adjustments, the council has directed the staff to provide a $2,000 one-time payment per person for professional, confidential, and mid-management employees, and a $2,500 one-time payment for management employees. On pages 3 of 5 and 4 of 5, we lay out the impact, the fiscal impact by fund of these adjustments. And on page 3 of 5, we lay out the professional and confidential and mid-management employees and their impact on the fund. This chart represents a 2-year impact. And then we move to page 4 of 5, and this chart represents the management employees. Again, this is a 1-year impact, and the total one-time payments are for the unrepresented employees are $106,574. And at the bottom of page 4 or 5, you will see the total cost of this proposal over the 2 years, encompassing all groups, will be $564,629. And so, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, staff is recommending approving the updated salary schedules, including 2 years of salary adjustments for the unrepresented professional, confidential, and management employees, and approving an updated salary schedule for 1 year of salary adjustments for unrepresented management employees, and 3, authorizing the city manager to amend the fiscal year 22-23 budget to fund those salary changes. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any comments from the council on this item? Vandenberg?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a comment. Yeah, during this process, you don't always get to make the choices you want, but I'm certainly glad we made the choices necessary. I would hate to see us go back to 4 years ago when we were cutting and slashing, and that was one of my red lines, I guess. I hate to use that term, but that's what comes to mind, that we do not go over budget. So, you know, in some respects, everybody didn't get what they wanted, but everybody got something, and even the citizens to this day still don't have their parks mowed and maintained as a standard they had 4 years ago. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
All right. Well, with that, I'll be looking for a motion to adopt a resolution approving updated salary schedules, including 2 years of salary adjustments for unrepresented professional / confidential and mid-management employees. And number 2, approving an updated salary schedule for 1 year of the salary adjustments for unrepresented management employees. And number 3, authorizing the city manager to amend the fiscal year 2022/23 budget to fund salary changes.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lozano,
Seconded?
seconded by Councilmember Papineau. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano?
Aye.
Mayor Farmer?
Aye. Approved 4-0. And just for clarification, I think I was saying 5-0 on the last 2 public hearing items. I apologize. It was 4-0 on those last items.
We
Right.
will issue demerits accordingly.
Yeah, I have several so far, I think. All right, moving on to item 2 tonight from our Community Development Department. The subject is going to be introduce an ordinance repealing and readopting Chapter 15.04 of the Galt Municipal Code relating to buildings and construction and adopting the 2022 editions of the California Building Standards Code. Mr. Hoffman.
All right, Mayor, members of the council, the first item tonight is again the introduction of the 2022 building code. With me is your building official, Zach Carver, and I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to describe the changes that you're seeing with this new 2022 code as opposed to what we had with 2019.
Good evening, council members. So the building code is updated every 3 years as mandated by the state. They make changes. It will become effective on January 1st, 2023. And they do this to continue to provide enforceable standards of life, health, and safety in our public buildings, our public spaces, and residential dwellings, and that it ensures that these uses are safe for the public and private homes. These codes will cover commercial and residential buildings, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical systems, the existing and historical buildings, swimming pools, the fire code, and the energy code. Some of the highlights of the changes, there's many changes, but most of them are driven by the energy code. And so there's enhanced requirements for efficiency, water conservation, interior environment, air quality, and things like that. Also, there's added safety features to protect occupants of homes and buildings where there's energy storage systems, commonly known as batteries or battery backup systems. There's stringent guidelines for the continued use of electric water heating systems. It's something that the state wants to see more of. There's several requirements for what they call aging in place and fall protection. These are things built into the construction now of homes that make it easier to adapt the home as people get older and need wheelchairs, walkers, and things like that. And so now builders have to incorporate these starting January 1, 2023. This adoption is specific to Galt because of its topography, geography, climate, and environment. And there's also appropriate amendments that we've adopted that are relative to our city. Our role as a building department is to enforce these codes and provide these safe places to live and work and visit. They maintain consistency with the city by enforcing codes on all construction projects equally, and they're consistent with neighboring communities that are adopting the same codes. There's no budget impact. The cost of the code books, staff training, continuing education,
and the implementation of the codes are covered with the annual community development budget. Are there any questions from the council?
I have a quick question. Are any of those new changes anything that you would say is like significant? Like where it's really gonna, I mean, I know there's like all this stuff like some of this stuff's like Title 24 stuff probably, right? So, but is there anything that pops out in your mind that you could say, yeah, this is a big one that would make an impact?
Yeah, good question. Probably the energy code requirements. Right now, if you have a new home or starting in 2023 and you want to put a gas water heater in, you also have to provide space and infrastructure for a future electric water heater. Meaning that if somebody wants to remove that, it's easier for them to do so. Infrastructure's there, electricity's there, the water's there to just tie right into.
Those are fairly small though anyways though, aren't they?
They are. They don't take up a lot of space, but you have to provide somewhere in your construction plan has to be a provision for that.
So tell me briefly about the senior stuff you talked about. What is some of that? Can you give me examples?
Absolutely. So a requirement now going in 2023 would be that on a floor level, typically the ground floor, you must have a bathroom door that it's 36 inches wide and a bedroom door that's 36 inches wide. Most of your common doors in your home are probably 32 inches. Also building infrastructure, blocking for adding grab bars around the toilet and to get in and out of the shower. All that has to be done behind the walls. It has to be notated and given to the homeowner upon taking over the home, so they don't have to go tear things apart to put those things in. It's already there for them to do.
You're talking they require one bedroom in the house and at least one bedroom and one bathroom to have 3 doors?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
And then you're talking about the backing, so you're talking about blocking in the wall, like fire blocking at certain heights to mount grab bars and things.
Correct, yeah, around the toilet and getting in and out of shower, bathtub area.
Interesting.
And that's so people can stay in their homes longer and not be displaced because maybe they can't afford to do those things, tear out a whole bathroom just to add those things.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have questions for him? No? Okay. Proceed. Is there anybody?
That was it, just any questions. Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, and we don't have any public comment on this item? Tina?
No public comment.
All right. All right, sorry guys, I lost where I'm at here. All right.
I was gonna offer, this hearing is a little bit different because it starts off, since we're basically adopting a code outside of our municipal code, you start with a departmental hearing and you're actually setting at our December 6th meeting will actually be the public hearing. So it kind of operates a little bit backwards from what we typically do for both the building code and the fire code.
Yeah, and that's just required by state law for these building code adoptions, that you have the public hearing at the second time. So this is informational to introduce it and to waive the reading by title only, and then it'll come back on December 6th for a formal public hearing.
Okay. So I got confused because there's two here. They read similar. I was trying to, we're on item L2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. All right, so I'm going to open the public hearing, which I did not do that. So the public hearing is open. Again, if anybody wishes to make a public comment in the room, you may do so on this particular item. Does anybody wish to speak on this item in the chambers? And we do not have any public comment outside of that? Okay. All right, well, with that, then I will close the public comment, and I will be looking for a motion to introduce and waive the first reading by title only of an ordinance of the City Council of Galt repealing and replacing Chapter 15.04 of the Galt Municipal Code relating to building and construction, and adopting by reference the 2022 California Administrative Code, California Building Code, California Residential Code, California Plumbing Code, California Mechanical Code, California Electrical Code, the Green Building Standards Code, the Existing Building Code, California Historical Building Code, reference standards, the Energy Code and the California Fire Code and making local amendments. And next, schedule a
No.
public hearing.
Just that part is for the motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to move that forward?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Vandenberg,
Second?
seconded by Councilmember Papineau. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano?
Aye.
Mayor Farmer?
Aye. Approved 4-0. Do I need to ask for motion for the, okay, all right. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to our next item is L3, which is to introduce an ordinance repealing and readopting Chapter 15.28 of the Galt Municipal Code relating to buildings and construction and adopting the 2022 edition of the California Fire Code, CEQA exempt under Section 15061B3. Mr. Hoffman.
Sure. And tonight, Mayor, members of the council, we have Lance Ray, our fire marshal, as well as Amber Anderson, our deputy fire marshal, presenting the 2022 California Fire Code.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lance Ray. I'm your fire marshal at Cosumnes Fire. I do have my subject matter expert, Amber Anderson, here with me. Before I get started, this is my first time getting an opportunity to present to you, and I'm going to do that so that we don't have the feedback there. I've met many of you at community events, but I just wanted to say thank you to staff for allowing me the opportunity to present tonight. So we're doing something very similar to what just happened with the building code. We're asking you to introduce and waive the first reading by title only. I won't go through all of that, but we are repealing a section of your municipal code and adopting the referenced and amended 2022 fire code. We're asking you to schedule a public hearing on December 6th. I stole slides out of my presentation to my board as I had a little bit of difficulty operating with the template, but I just wanted to point out that the prevention of fire is a core mission of the Cosumnes Service District. It's something we spend a considerable amount of time and effort on, and this is kind of the ground rules, if you will, for those efforts. This is the triennial code adoption. We do this every 3 years. We've already started work at the national level on the 2025 update. It takes a significant amount of time, effort, and technical experts to get this put in place, and the intent of the process to kind of update our rules and regulations to be consistent with kind of modern standards. This progress includes the adoption of the Building Standards Code and Title 24, and moving through this as quickly as possible, as is very similar. Our ordinance, as a local ordinance, 21, is kind of a accumulation of multiple years. So we will have, while we're repealing the entire ordinance and replacing it, it's not all new. We're making a few changes, generally to a few sections. There was one section that was just an oversight. There's a few items that we have to address, similar to what you've heard tonight in both water and other things, because it changes at the state level. We needed to update our language. The process was led by our Deputy Fire Marshal, Amber Anderson. She actually led a collaborative group of fire departments throughout Sacramento County. We do this so that our development community has a relatively consistent set of rules. So if you're building a home in Galt, it's pretty consistent with what you might have in Rancho Cordova or others. We try to be as close as we can, recognizing that all of our jurisdictions are just a little bit different, but we do recognize that our development partners work throughout this county and San Joaquin County, and we want those rules to be as similar as possible. Additionally, as part of our outreach, we reached out to both the City of Galt, City of El Grove, and we reached out to the Industry Working Group, which is specifically related to the development of single-family housing, just to make sure that they were aware of what was coming, what we intended to implement, and give them an opportunity to comment. There's a couple of things here that we can talk about, things that the fire code's always a few years behind what we're seeing. Lithium-ion battery storage is a pressing issue. It's something that's kind of developing, the technology's developing. Our electric vehicles and the charging stations and those things, we're a little behind in the technology. The code is attempting to catch up. Additionally, we do have some additional requirements for emergency responder radios. These bigger, larger buildings that you're starting to see in California, 1 million square feet and more, your portable radio is basically a paperweight when you get into the middle of them. So beginning in 2015, excuse me, And then again in 18, emergency responder radios, we're starting to get better at that, and the frequencies and interference, and so there's some updates there. Energy storage systems, everybody's starting to see the home-based battery system for their solar. Again, we want to make sure that those are done correctly, and we're catching up with existing technology. Our existing language, updated and amended. We did fix one fire sprinkler requirement that we had missed. It was in the 2016 code, somehow dropped out of the 19 code and is now back. It is consistent with what we've done in the past related to the construction of factories. We've made a few amendments to clarify our water supply requirements. And then we also have added back in NFPA 13R, which is, if you're familiar with it, it's a single-family home when it's constructed will have plastic piping for the sprinkler system. A commercial building will have metal piping for a sprinkler system. 13R allows you to do the plastic piping in an apartment complex. So it saves cost, and the evidence shows that it's just as effective. The fire code as amended would become, with our ordinance, becomes effective when I say our, as a Cassumas Service District, would become effective on January 1st and remain in effect until the end of the next 3-year cycle. We're asking that the council, as we talked about, waive the first reading of the ordinance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to go ahead and open the public comment while the council asks this question. So the public, the public hearing. I'm out of sorts tonight, I'm sorry. I have a question though. Is there anything that's changed? You were mentioning the lithium batteries and stuff like that, but is there anything that's different about code regarding residents or new residential houses regarding, the transition to more electric vehicles and people having these charging stations possibly in their garages and things, or not really?
There's some minor changes related to, so the fire code also adopts a series of standards below it, the NFPA 1372, and they regulate that. So there are some changes that regulate the fire sprinkler changes in the garage if you put a battery in there. I believe they codified the vehicle protection so somebody doesn't drive through their garage and hit the battery system. So there's a couple of minor changes, but nothing significant that would deter an individual from being able to put a battery storage system in their home.
Okay, I was thinking of it more like, you have this, you have your Tesla in your garage now, and the Tesla basically has this ginormous battery, right? So you were mentioning battery storage, just thinking, well, what if you have your car in there? And I was just wondering if that's even a relevant question.
A very relevant question. I don't know that the code's caught up with it. The electric vehicle issues that we're seeing that are related to thermal runaway, which is some of the stuff you'll see as this fire looks like it's shooting out of the bottom of the vehicle. The vehicle is not regulated by the fire code. The structure is. Right now the structure is not designed to really handle that fire. It's very possible the 2025 code will catch up. We are doing things locally using standards to basically ensure that the fire sprinkler system there has a fire sprinkler head that can do the best it can to make sure that the residents of the home can get out, but it's not going to protect your residents the way if you think of like fire sprinklers extinguishing the fire. That's likely not going to happen. It's going to give you additional time. You'll be able to escape. That's what residential sprinklers are designed to do. But as the electric vehicles age, we're seeing more recalls. We're seeing more of a fire issue, and I expect that the fire code will catch up in the next 3 years.
All new homes built do require fire sprinklers. Am I wrong?
Correct. January 1 of 2010 in the state of California.
All right. Council?
Yeah, if I may. How does car batteries and lithium ion, probably more specifically, interact with water? It was my present understanding that water is actually bad to pour onto a car or electric car fire.
So the evidence is limited because we've not had a lot of them in the fire service. We're seeing more as these vehicles get to the 7, 8, 9, 10 years old here in our community. We do know from a recent hurricane that submerging the vehicles underwater south can generate basically a short, which can lead to a fire. We've had incidents in the fire service where we've put out an electric vehicle fire, or so we thought, and it reignited. There's the attempt now to basically drown the vehicle after a fire. We're learning, really, as these batteries age, the best way to go about them. And so the traditional, put the fire out, think we're good to go, get the report, take care of the folks, get the vehicle off the road, isn't enough. We are doing more to kind of follow the vehicle to the storage yard, make sure it's in a location where it's not going to cause problems.
Yeah, that's, sorry. As an electrician, I find that interesting because water and electricity is not a good mix in general unless it's purified. But so my instinct tells me not to put water on an electric car fire, but
We're going to use our foam to avoid the ability for electric current to travel the water stream. So when we put the Class A foam on it, it gives us that opportunity to make sure that it doesn't harm us. But as we continue to see these, and thermal runaway, the concern, this isn't really fire code related, but thermal runaway is a concern is that the damage could have happened in a vehicle accident, and then multiple hours later, you can have the chemical reaction that causes the fire. And so we're kind of still learning how to deal with that in the fire service.
right. So when it comes to a garage, this would add, you would require more sprinklers or less, or?
They're there now. Fire sprinklers since 2000, for the newer homes, 2010. If you were to go and put a battery storage system that's specific for the home into your garage, in a home built before 2010 that does not have fire sprinklers, you would be required to add 2 sprinklers in your garage, or 4 sprinklers in your garage to basically protect against this. But again, the code is catching up, and I expect you'll see more of it in 2025.
Okay, so it's not so much like on the battery, it's just to protect the entire, everything in that area.
Correct. Residential fire sprinklers are built to give you the opportunity to fire to be identified using your smoke detector, smoke alarm, and then evacuate the house in time. They're not meant to really put the fire out and like a commercial fire sprinkler would be. They're just to kind of buy you time, and so this is what we have in place now.
You just told me I had a downgrade in my home. Thank you.
That was not my intent, I promise.
I think it's interesting what you just said. You're saying the sprinklers by time, because when we were saying, when you mentioned about the commercial requiring the metal sprinkler pipes versus the home, which uses like the PEX stuff, right?
Right.
Okay. So, or is it the PEX, like the plumbing, or is it different?
It's CPVC. So, yes.
Okay. So what I think is interesting is I'm thinking about fire and the system which is used to suppress the fire. I mean, plastic obviously has a way lower melting point than, say, copper pipe or steel pipe, right? So, I mean, essentially this whole system could just be inoperable if the fire got too.
It could be. Theoretically, that's one of the concerns. That's why the systems are kind of classified differently. Really, the difference in the commercial design is the attic protection. It's going to be every inch. It's going to be your attic, it's going to be your sub, it's anything that has a obstruction of 4 feet or more. In a single family home, it's going to protect the living space in the garage. Your attic's not going to be protected. And so it's built to do different things. The sprinkler head design, and so the temperature of the sprinkler heads and other things are going to go off at different times. So they're very different systems. A commercial system is going to have the ability for the fire department to pump into and augment. You've seen those FDCs that are always out in front of commercial buildings and things like that. Those are not in residential, for the point that we're not going to augment that sprinkler system. We're going to go in and fight that fire with your traditional fire attack. And so it's just a different look at doing the same job, but what we found is they're very effective. Getting fire, water into a room and contents fire from a fire sprinkler, incredibly effective at keeping the temperature down, extending that time. And really, in a community like Galt, the fire department with the response time like we do, we're going to be there. The sprinkler's going to hold that fire in place. We're going to be there and put it out, and you're not going to lose. You'll be back in your home that night, versus a home that doesn't have a fire sprinkler. It can expand beyond the room and contents, and you may not be back in your home for a year. So that's the benefit of the fire sprinkler.
All right, thank you. Sorry to ask so many questions. I just think it's fascinating.
You open a can of worms when you ask me fire code questions. So apologize for getting long-winded.
All right. Do we have any? The public hearing is open, so do we have any comment from anybody in the room?
No public comment.
All right, and no comment outside the?
Nope.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, well, with that, I'll be looking for a motion. I'm sorry. I'll be closing the public comment period, the public hearing, sorry. And I'll be looking for a motion to introduce and waive the first reading by title only of an ordinance of the City Council of Galt to repeal and readopt Chapter 15.28 of the Galt Municipal Code relating to buildings and construction and adopting by reference the 2022 California Fire Code and making legal amendments. Do I have a motion to move that?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lozano, and I will second it. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Papineau?
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano?
Aye.
Mayor Farmer?
Aye. Approved 4-0. All right, moving on to item M, communication. Do we have any this evening?
No communication.
All right. Item N, city clerk's report.
Nothing.
All right. Item O, comments by staff. Mr. Hines?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let's hear from Public Works Director Mike Selling, see if there's any more to add.
Actually, some good news, a correction. I was apparently quoting the peak sewer capacity at 2.2 million gallons per day. We're actually about 1.8 million average, so we've got some additional capacity there. So the other thing is just wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving next week. Thank you.
All right, let's go with Police Chief Brian Kalinowski.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is just two things. We have upcoming on the 28th of this month, it's a Monday, at noon, we will be at the memorial honoring the 10-year anniversary of Roy Markham, who was killed in the line of duty as a Sacramento County Animal Control Officer. So we'll be doing, our honor guard will be doing a wreath placement and a quick moment of silence, and then a recording of the events that happened that day when he lost his life. And so that's being handled by the honor guard and members of the department. And we invite the members of the public to be there. Again, that's Monday, November 28th at 12 o'clock here at the memorial. The second item we have, I mentioned it a couple weeks ago to get it started early, is on Tuesday, December 13th between 5 and 7 p.m. The police department will be holding an open house, our holiday open house, entitled How Galt PD Stopped the Grinch. And so we will have a reading by our grandpa and grandma cops on how the Grinch stole Christmas, a tour of the police department, and booking photos with the Grinch, along with hot chocolate and cookies for the kids. So those are the two events that we have upcoming for the police department. And we invite everybody to come and tour the department. We have some new carpeting and different things that we've been doing, so we'd like you to come see it. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Economic Development Manager Amy Mendez.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Just wanted to let everybody know that on December 1st, we are going to be releasing a retail survey for the community. That'll be a SurveyMonkey link. It'll be on social media, in our newsletter. We'll probably highlight it in our newsletter and try to get as many folks as we can responding to that from the community. And questions asked will be related to retail, restaurants, fast casual, sit-down restaurants, fast food restaurants, types of retail, specific retailers that folks would like to see. Also some information, just trying to collect data on where people are shopping at outside of Galt, so that we can kind of get a grasp on where people in the community are going to shop for daily need stuff, but also for apparel and shoes and home goods and those types of things. So I encourage you to share the information when you guys see it come out, so we can get as many responses as possible. It'll be really helpful for our retail attraction consultant that we're working with to make sure that we're kind of targeting the right, I think we have an idea of what folks in the community want, but this will really give us some substance along that. So, and I think we'll have it open until the end of December. So we're going to run it for a month and try to get as much traction as we can. And then we'll report back. Our retail consultant should be here in January providing a presentation on the market analysis that they've completed, and they will be kicking off their retail attraction efforts in January, February. The retail community goes to sleep, I think, for the entire month of December. Nobody's very responsive. So the first of the year will be a good time, I think, for us to start the recruitment efforts. So we will report back once we have some concrete information have questions.
So this will be like, this will be a Survey Monkey, like, we'll share the survey, but they'll click on it and then they'll take the survey. It's not going to be like a post where people can comment and start getting in discussions.
No.
That would be a train wreck.
I don't want to track that. No, I'd much rather, Survey Monkey is a really
Right.
good platform for open-ended questions too, just so we can get an idea of, I can't put it would be a laundry list of retailers if I was really trying to get a precise number, but general feedback is really going to be helpful for us. And Survey Monkey is able to track words and, retailers or restaurants specifically, so we can at least provide that information. And then we can report back to the community on what we heard, what we've, received from them, and any successes we have moving forward, we can kind of highlight that. So that's what we'll be working on.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go with Community Development Director Craig Hoffman.
Mayor, members of the council, nothing further from me. You satisfied or you survived 6 items from planning. That deserves an award.
Congratulations, Council. Let's go with Matt Boring, our Finance Director.
Good evening. I have no updates tonight.
All righty. Thank you, sir. And last, but certainly not least, let's go with our Parks and Rec Director, Armando Solis. Well, maybe not last. We'll see.
Did they send you over some slides? All right. So I'll just give you a verbal report that Saturday, December 3rd is Lighting of the Night event. We are adding a vendor fair on Civic Drive with that this year. I personally went through with staff all the new decorations that you guys approved earlier this year, and believe me, there's a ton of decorations. I really think you guys are going to be happy with them. And
So no more old candles?
we are not putting out any old stuff. So if people go, well, this used to be here, we're throwing all that out. So we've purchased enough stuff to put in different locations, not necessarily. We're doing something big on Cibola Hills versus doing something down where the trees are. We're going to add. You'll be really happy with that. I really just want you guys to see it. I don't want you guys to be surprised that they're going to start putting stuff up tomorrow. They're going to start decorating the tree tomorrow. But we will not turn anything on until after Thanksgiving. But it just takes that long to do that. We have a company, Jesse, the tree guy. He's volunteered to decorate our tree for us this year. He has a boom lift, so we won't have to rent one of those, and he'll be decorating it for us. So I was really happy about that. And then we have the performances. We're accepting parade entries. So if you guys know anybody who wants to be part of the parade, we'd love to have them. And we'll have our performances from our elementary school districts again. So, and I think that's about it right now. You guys have any questions about the parade or anything?
No, look forward to seeing the new stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be really nice.
Look forward to the event. Thank you, Armando.
All right, thank you. And City Attorney Frank Splendario, any reports?
Nothing. Just have a good Thanksgiving.
All right. City Clerk Hubert?
Nothing.
All right, Mr. Mayor, that concludes staff comments.
All right. Thank you, sir. Moving on to comments by City Council or future agenda items. Mr. Papineau.
Happy Thanksgiving, and who knows, maybe by Thanksgiving we'll actually have a vote count.
Right.
That's all I have.
Yeah. All right. Councilman Vandenberg.
That was funny. I think I already made the most important statement earlier in the meeting. I am very thankful for all that staff does. It's a lot of work. I know code is, being an electrician and reading through the National Electrical Code, it's very tedious, and it always changes, so it's a constant battle. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Hug your loved ones, appreciate them while they're around, and here's a good opportunity to do it coming Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's all, Mayor.
All right, thank you, sir.
I have nothing other than to say happy Thanksgiving, and for those of you that have the opportunity to not work during the time, please do so. Thank you to those that are going to be working, our first responders specifically here in our city, our police department and dispatchers. But if you can, take your pack off a little bit and relax with family.
Thank you to staff. Thank you for bearing with me and getting through all that reading of all those code stuff. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hopefully Armando will get a nice little gift of Measure Q passes. We're all crossing our fingers, or at least I am. And hopefully we'll know in a couple weeks if that's the case. So, a couple weeks. Yeah. So anyways, everybody have a good holiday, be safe, and we'll see you guys back on December 6th. Good night. Meeting adjourned. At 7:37, Tina.